you. Council agenda, Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Township Council agenda meeting of October 16th, 2018.
Posting of notice. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on a municipal website on December 20th, 2017, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record and the North Star Ledger on December 27, 2017, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers on December 20th, 2017. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for the flag salute.
Yeah.
Mrs. Peterson, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Ms. Grignani?
Present.
Ms. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Carriffy?
Here.
Also in attendance are Township Attorney Jim Lott, our new incoming Business Administrator Keith Kasmark, our current Business Administrator Alan Sandman, and our CFO Ann Cucci. Council President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, October 30th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. regular meeting, and November 8th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. agenda meeting. Please take note that's a Thursday due to the election on the Tuesday of that week. Approval of minutes, agenda meeting July 10th, regular meeting July 24th, agenda meeting August 7th, regular meeting August 21st. Presentation reports, Township Council, anything? No? Okay.
Just one item, if I may.
Yes.
As liaison and a trustee of Craftsman Farms, they had their gala this past weekend. A very successful function for them, and a philanthropist donated some stick-leaf furniture worth estimated about $500,000 worth, and requested that the pieces not be separated, that they stay together as one entire unit. A huge, huge donation. The Craftsman Farms people are jumping up and down over that.
Okay, Township Attorney, Mr. Lott.
Just note for Township Council, we did receive from Stanberry 1515 application for long-term tax abatement and redevelopment area bond financing. Copies were provided to Council.
Thank you. Business Administrator, Mrs. Sandman.
Good evening. I'm not going to talk too much about anything in particular, but if questions do arise as we get into the agenda, I would be looking to respond to some of those issues. However, working for 44 years in this beautiful arena where nothing happens and it's quiet and serene in how we work with the public and work with our residents, and everybody's happy and no problems and no issues. I want to welcome the new business administrator to, you heard of Camelot? Well, this ain't it. No. Actually, you know what? There's a little bit of Camelot, and if anything's worth working on, it's a community, and a community has, its ups and downs and its issues. But if we all work together and pull together, and I've had the opportunity to work with you only a short time. He's stopped counting the days. He's made it past a week. So I think you're going to be very blessed with Keith. He's been a delight to work with. He's certainly seasoned in the field, and it's been a privilege so far, and we're going to continue it. I have a few more weeks left of this wonderful arena that I chose as my life's work, and it's been a pleasure, and so welcome to the arena. Let the games begin.
Okay, thank you. Township Clerk.
Council President, I just have one small item regarding the agenda with regards to the closed session. On the closed session, it states that we are going into closed session for personnel matters, contract negotiations, and litigation settlement agreement. The litigation settlement agreement matter, which has to do with RD Realty, is not going to be in closed session. Rather, it will be done in the public session. At that time, our township attorney, who was conflicted out, will leave the room, and we will have the attorney for the town, Bill Opel, up here answering any questions you may have. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Okay, township offices, committees, reports? None?
Council President, may I
Yes.
speak? I have some great news for the town, and congratulations to the mayor and everyone who works very hard. Standard & Poor's, we're going out for a bond anticipation note sale. I guess it's at the end of this month. And we asked Standard & Poor's to come back and rate us. And the great news, because we have a great story to tell here in Parsippany, is that we received the highest rating you could receive for a short-term note of SP1 plus, highest rating you can get in a township. So congratulations to the township. And we also were affirmed our AA rating. So this is exciting news for us. We posted it on Facebook happily today. And congratulations to all on the council.
Yeah, I mean, we're
And
talking
to
about,
you.
we're talking about $32 million. So
Yeah, it's exciting.
it's great
Thank
news.
you.
Good job, thank you.
Yes, good job.
Okay, engineering report.
I have one other.
Good.
Okay.
There's more news.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're busy in the town. Also, I also want to welcome Keith. He's a great addition to our township with a lot of experience, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. We have, as you know, had quite a year with the tax bills. So we were trying to do a new type of bill that has a code on it, like a barcode. We bought a system that will read these barcodes. Well, the printer didn't really get it right, and long story short, barring a whole bunch of other issues, we finally have printed the bills, and they are going out on Friday. And it has nothing to do with the mayor. It really is in the finance office. And if anybody needs anything or has any questions, please feel free to come see me. I'll be happy to print off your bill, but you should have it by early next week.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Engineering report, Knoll Road Improvement Project. Construction of the Knoll Road Improvement Project is substantially complete with the exception of minor cleanup items. No council action required. Lake Parsippany Road Improvements Phase 6 project. Construction of the 6th phase of the Lake Parsippany Road Improvement Project remains in progress. Work will continue through October. No council action required. 2018 road resurfacing project. The milling and resurfacing of various streets throughout the township is substantially complete and only minor punch list items remain. No council action required. Own Bloomfield Ave Phase 1 project. First phase of the Own Bloomfield Avenue project is nearing completion. Once the sanitary sewer main lining has been completed, the roadway will be paved and striped. No council action required. Moraine Area Streets Phase 2 project. The second phase of this project is approximately 50% complete. Construction is expected to last through the fall. No council action required. Mount Tabor Area Streets Phase 3 improvement project. Construction is progressing on this project and will continue through the end of the construction season. No council action required. Drainage issues. Engineering and the Public Works Department have continued to investigate draining issues on Bromley Drive, Stafford Road, and Cherry Lane. The drainage issue is the easement behind the homes on Stafford Road and Winfield Drive is being addressed. Homes on both sides of Cherry Lane have been experiencing draining issues. This problem is believed to be caused by the extremely high groundwater table. We are continuing to monitor the situation and propose improvements. The draining ditch behind the homes on Bromley Drive has been cleared of debris, which should help runoff flow more freely in the channel. No council action required.
Council President, yeah, before you go on.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead, you can go first.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to Justin Leza from the Engineering Department and Greg Snyder from the Public Works Department. My brother is impacted by this on Stafford Road, and he was notified that they will be looking into the drainage situation. They believe not only because of the high water table, but because there may be tree roots in the drainage area, and that will be addressed. They're hoping not to have residents remove their fences or in some cases gazebos, sheds, and what have you. And as soon as the weather clears a little bit, they will be forthcoming in taking care of this problem. And I just wanted to thank them, and I also wanted to thank Ellen. Ellen was on top of this when I showed her pictures of the flooded area of the backyards that were affected on Stafford Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DePiero, did you have?
Well, I was going to state that the Cherry Lane problem, well, they're blaming the high groundwater table, that problem has pretty much been resolved. They cleared out some tree roots in the storm drain, and the groundwater has subsided, and I don't think that's a problem anymore. But Stafford Road and Winfield Drive are serious, and I think those two should be given a separate item and not just lumped in with drainage issues. Those are serious problems over there. You have swimming pools floating, actually floating, severe damage to backyards. So I suggest we have Bromley Drive and Stafford Road as a separate item.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Endorsement of the NJDOT Municipal Aids Grant. We're in the process of preparing and submitting grant applications through the NJDOT Municipal Aid Grant Program. The first application is for the improvements of Green Bank Road, which includes drainage enhancements, roadway base course strengthening, minor widening, and the installation of guardrails along the sewage treatment plant side of the road. The second application is for the improvements of Edwards Road from Vale Road to Old Bloomfield Avenue, and includes drainage improvements and the resurfacing of the roadway. Resolutions endorsing the applications will need to be adopted by the Township Council. Major soil moving permit, Latitude West and Latitude East LLC, Block 136, lots 36.05 and 36.06. The Planning Board has recommended approval of a major soil moving permit in conjunction with the site plan application at 389 to 399 and 369 to 379 Interpace Parkway. This office has reviewed the application and recommends the Township Council approve the permit. We recommend the Township Council approve the permit by resolution. CVS Pharmacy Performance Guarantee Release, Block 411, Lot 18. The developer completed all site work in accordance with the approved plans. Inspections were made during the course of construction, and this office has no objection to the release of performance bonds numbers 012024625 and 012024642. A resolution will need to be adopted by the Township Council. Bids taken October 4th, 2018, yard waste transportation and disposal recycling. October 5th, 2018, Craftsman's Farms administration building rehabilitation. To be taken October 30th, 2018, WWTP generator improvements. Quotations, proposals, qualifications, none. Closed session resolution, Mrs. Peterson.
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss personnel matters and contract negotiations, correct? That's all?
Yes.
And whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
We are now going to adjourn into closed session. We'll be back shortly. Thank you. We are back on the record.
Entertain a motion to reconvene.
Motion?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
We are now back into public session.
Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make an announcement to the public at this particular point in time. We do have the public session, which means that you guys can come up and comment or ask any questions on whatever topics you would like. I do want to point out that at this time, I'm going to have Mr. Opel come up to the microphone. He is the attorney for the township with regards to the matter of RD Realty, otherwise known as Waterview. So if you would like, at that time, right now, come up and just ask your questions, because this is when we will address any questions you may have on the matter.
Please state your name and address when you come in up and sign in.
Bob, you can come up. I see you want to come up. Come on, Bob.
Oh.
It's okay. It doesn't have to be
Okay,
about
that's
Waterview.
right.
I'm just saying he's here to answer questions in the event that anybody would like to ask a question. Of course.
No, you look at the retirement benefit.
Thank you.
I got it, Bob.
Okay, thank you. My name is Bob Venezzi. I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. The current form of the pilot agreement between Parsippany and the developers at 1515, District 1515, does a great disservice to the taxpayers of our town. And since this pilot is going to become the template for future mega apartment complexes, it's imperative that the council get this agreement right or scrap it entirely. In his presentation, the financial consultant stated that without the pilot, Stanberry would only achieve a 5% yield on its investment. In today's interest rate environment, what's wrong with 5%? Why must the residents of Parsippany subsidize Stanberry? And that's what a pilot is. It's a subsidy in order to guarantee the developers a yield of at least 10%. Try building your own new house and asking the township for a pilot so that you can achieve a 10% return and see how far you get. A pilot can sometimes make sense for a project that will still yield positive tax revenues to the township. But as we'll see in a minute, the Stanberry project is a big-time tax revenue loser. As we know, project presentations are always made in the most favorable light to the developers, who often include outrageously optimistic assumptions to achieve their goals. The Stanberry pilot contains two totally unrealistic assumptions having to do with education costs. The financial consultant estimates that the apartments will generate between 20 and 25 students at a cost of $10,000 per student. The true cost of educating a student in Parsippany is not $10,000, it's $22,000, as shown in that document from the New Jersey Department of Education that I just handed out. In addition, as I stated at the last council meeting, the number of students that the district at 1515 will generate is about 82. That number is based on the average number of students per unit associated with the 7,000 apartments that already exist in town. In fact, the true number will likely be more than my estimate. Powder Mill Heights serves a clientele that is similar in affluence to District 1515 and the rents are comparable. Based on 2015 statistics, Powder Mill, which has 90 fewer units than District 1515, sent 97 students to our schools. Even at a conservative estimate of 100 students at District 1515, the education costs associated with the project would total $2.2 million. Add that to the $400,000 that Stanberry estimates for municipal expenses, and the total expenses to the project to Parsippany becomes $2.6 million annually. Compare that number to the net tax revenue of 1.1 that Stanberry expects when the project is stabilized, and you get a $1.5 million net tax revenue deficit, which existing taxpayers must make up for. Council members, you must not sign off on this pilot agreement without adding a condition that will protect the taxpayers of Parsippany from net tax deficits arising from overly optimistic projections. Specifically, the developers must be required to pay a tax surcharge
1 minute.
for every student that exceeds their estimate of 25 students, multiplied by the most recent Department of Education cost per pupil. Consider this clause as an insurance policy. If Stanberry's student enrollment estimate is correct, it'll cost them nothing. But if they're wrong, the taxpayers of Parsippany will have the protection that they deserve. If Stanberry refuses to agree to this conditional surcharge, then you know that the pilot agreement was flawed from the start and you should walk away from it entirely. I believe that this clause will save our taxpayers millions of dollars over the lifetime of the pilot, and I believe it's your fiduciary duty to include it in the agreement. I'd like to hear your comments on this proposal. Thank you.
Interesting comment, Bob. I will consider that, how we would word that in the contract.
I think it's not a bad, it's a good suggestion. Thank you.
I agree.
It won't cost them anything if they're right, and if they're wrong, we're protected. That's what I'm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lott, are we still in a position to make that kind of negotiation?
I can take that back to the council for the redeveloper and ask.
Thank you.
Nick Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. Thanks to Janice, we saw this movie, Ocean of Plastic. I've seen documentaries before about plastic. This was the best one I've ever saw. It gave me insomnia. And this issue should be apolitical. If you're not disturbed by plastic, then, in my opinion, then you're not, you can't really be a human being. But here, last Halloween, 7-Eleven, they gave this to the kids, straw, this, boom. And the next day after Halloween, it was all up and down North Beverwick Road. I would like the council or the mayor or anybody, please recommend 7-Eleven, don't give this to the kids. Not only is it not healthy for them, this is pollution. And they don't need something like this on a Halloween. When Greg and Chad were here from sanitation, they emphasized that it's not just their ball game. You have to have housing, you have to have health, and you have to have the police involved if necessary. Parsippany got used to a lot of bad practices. Supposedly we had a contractor that would pick up anything. He didn't care what it was. I got this from Larry Gindorf from the Morris County Utility. The guy went bankrupt. Now Parsippany is trying again with a different contractor. But the bottom line is, if we don't enforce the mandatory laws, the ordinances on our books, and the state law for recycling, start identifying these people who aren't complying with the law, we don't stand a chance. We don't stand a chance. And the other thing is, when are the people going to start sweeping the streets? Because you bring a street cleaner down the street once a week, that's not enough. That's not enough, especially after all this rain. You go on North Beverwick and go on any street that goes down the hill, down toward the Rockaway River, and you'll see all that. Most of that stuff is from North Beverwick, and the stormwater carries it. You keep the streets clean on a daily basis, it looks nicer, and you're preventing pollution, stormwater pollution. And I don't see why that should be so difficult to accomplish. Years ago, it was the norm. Now it's not the norm anymore. I mean, you've heard me say this a lot of times. There's one other thing, and and I can't remember what it was. But we have, oh yeah, the resolution. What's going on with the resolution? We're supposed to have a resolution in support of Mr. Murphy's plastic ban. So what is taking the council so long to come up with this resolution? I don't, you know, all it is to support the ban on plastic, and something has to be done. But you see this movie, I mean, really, you feel like putting a rope around your neck. I mean, it's so bad that it has to start somewhere, and we have to do our part to show that we're also concerned.
1 minute.
So a resolution, please, in support of the New Jersey state ban on one-point plastics.
Thank you.
Mr. Lott, where are
Where,
we at?
yeah.
In reference to that?
We can have a resolution for next meeting. That's in support of the Smith bill?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we ask that the street sweeper go down North Beverwick Road on November 1st? Is that possible?
Can make that request to Greg.
Thank you.
Ken Dolsky, 21 Winfield Drive. First, I just heard you say that we could have that resolution on the agenda for the next meeting.
Action is taken on resolutions at the second meeting of the month.
So you'll have the you can vote. You'll be voting on the may meeting.
May I ask, is there some kind of urgency to it or no?
It's just been dragging on and dragging on. I keep asking about it. I'd like to
no
see
problem.
it happen before I,
Not a problem
before
at
I
all.
can't come to these meetings anymore.
You got it, Ken, not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So what I really wanted to talk about tonight was the letter that we got from the Highlands Council, the letter that Ellen got in response to the question that we sent to Highlands Council about water availability. And you all got copies of it. I hope that you read it. Basically, this letter doesn't answer our questions. At least my question was, how much water capacity is available to us? How does that change over time between wet seasons and dry seasons? What's the recharge rate? What's the drawdown rate in comparison? Are we on the verge in a protracted drought of running out of water, or are we in good shape, even with a drought? That was the question that I asked. This letter does not come close to answering it. I'm beginning to suspect nobody knows the answer. So this letter talks about the fact that we're in a water deficit, but it's an artificial water deficit because we're taking water out of one watershed and our wastewater is being shipped to another watershed. So by the accounting that goes on, the water management accounting, or whatever you want to call it, we have a deficit of 14.5 million gallons a day. We must have had that for years, and we still keep pumping water. So obviously, it doesn't mean anything. It's not like the bank, where when the bank tells you that you have a deficit, you know there's no more money. You can't get any more out of the bank. Here, we keep pumping water, and I don't think we know how, and the water department doesn't know how much water we have available to us in that aquifer. So I assume nobody here in Parsippany knows. So I'd like to see that we follow up. Perhaps it's with the Highlands Council first to have a hydrologist talk to us. Perhaps it's with the DEP to have a hydrologist from the DEP talk to us, since they're the ones who set the limits for withdrawal, and find out, does anybody know how much water we have available to us? And there's two good reasons for doing that. So first, as I mentioned, we ought to know where we stand if in case we do have a drought, or other towns maybe have problems and we have to cut our water back because of problems that those towns have. We need to have some idea how much water is available and what is going to happen in the near term and long term future. The second reason is that water availability is a consideration when low income housing obligations are set. And having an understanding of how much water is available to us could impact our obligations for low-income housing. I have no idea whether that's going to be meaningful or not, but we ought to understand it, and we ought to be including it in the negotiations when we're talking to the courts about what our low-income housing obligations are. It was water and sewage, as I understand, that were the two factors that could impact whatever the obligations are. So I urge you, I'm going to ask you, tell me what next steps you're going to take. But I also want to urge you to, and Nick and I have asked you this like at least a half a dozen times, maybe more, to let somebody from the Highlands Coalition come and talk about the benefits of conformance and how that impacts fair share housing, and how that impacts us and what benefits we could get out of it in terms of protection against lawsuits, et cetera. We have talked about this till we're blue in the face. I mean, I might as well be talking to a wall for all I've gotten out of this council from the number of times that we brought this up. So my second question is, are we ever going to invite somebody from the Highlands Coalition to come talk to us? Thank you. Those are my two questions. I'd like to have answers.
I read the letter, and you're talking about the one that came from the Highlands Council, right? When I read that letter, I thought there was a distinction between what the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and the Highlands were saying. One was talking about usage, the other was talking about deficits and how the aquifers are affected in the wells. That's the way I understood it. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, well, our standard is different. Usage is different than regeneration. Mm-hmm. That's the way I understood the letter. So, I mean, I think that was in response to the ANJAC letter that sort of said the same thing, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I agree.
And we can get clarification on that, and we can probably schedule somebody, but...
My point is, nothing in that letter told us how much water is available to us over the course, say, of a year or in 5 years. That's what we want to know. That was not explained. This deficit thing is an artificial deficit as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
The fact that we have a 14 million gallon a day deficit and we keep pumping water says, is this good, bad, or indifferent? We have no idea.
Okay, thank you.
So how are we going to find out? What are we going to do?
Well, we'll have to check into that. I mean, we've gotten a letter from the Highlands, so we'll have to ask them for additional information, I suppose.
Okay.
Thank you.
And any plans to have the Highlands Coalition people come and give a presentation on the benefits of conformance?
We'll have to come. Let's have them come.
Highlands Coalition?
Yes.
Was it a particular person?
Either Elliot, Elliot what? Ruga, right. Or Julia Summers.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Good evening. Jerry Manning of Rainbow Lakes. Well, just to answer the question that was just brought up about the Highlands Council, I'm dead set against it unless and until they pay the millions and millions of dollars they owe the people that are already in the council that lost money by them taking over. When they pay the money, then I might listen to what they have to say. Now, and anyway, I don't know why we're talking. Earlier this evening, we were talking about a high water table, and now we're talking about a deficit. How does that work? Can we move the deficit to the high water, or move the high water to the deficit and equal it out? I don't know how that works. Oh, and please, this plastic situation, it could go on forever. First of all, plastic is an inanimate object, so how are we going to make a law or a resolution against an inanimate object? How does that work? I don't understand that. The plastic itself does not get up and run into the ocean. It doesn't do that. People do that. I think people do that. Mr. Horniak said they gave the plastic to the people last year, so they're the ones responsible for the situation of the plastics in the water. Why don't we pass a resolution to arrest people who throw that plastic in the street? The plastic doesn't get there by itself. Somebody has to put it there. Let's put them in jail. Plus, it's a foolish move to make a state law banning plastic. Did you ever stop to think how many jobs will be lost because of that? And we'll be putting how many hundreds, or maybe more, people out of work who'll wind up on a dole, and we have to pay the tax to support them? How stupid is this? We're talking about an inanimate object. We want to, if you want to pass a resolution, pass it against animate objects, like humans who throw the plastic instead of putting it in the trash where it belongs. Oh, and tonight was another example of these closed sessions, which are getting totally out of control. We've had more closed sessions in this past 10 months than we had in the past 4 years. Now, my suggestion is this, for many reasons. Hold the closed sessions either before the meeting, after the meeting, or on another night during the week. There's a reason for my excuse me. There's a reason for my objection to this. There are many reasons, one of which are young people who are here for town business, and then they're told they can't participate, so they walk away confused as to what's the meaning of a closed session. Then number two, we got young people that have to get home and put their kids to bed. Then we have other young people who have to go to bed so they can get up in the morning, go to work to earn the money to pay you people off. And they don't want to stick around here till midnight when they have to go to work in the morning.
1 minute.
So I never understood closed sessions to begin with. Yes, you have to have them. I understand that. You don't have to have them at our expense. Have it at your expense. If you're going to be discussing stuff that we're not supposed to know, then do it amongst yourselves. Don't take up our time talking about stuff we're not going to talk about. Oh. And Mr. Horniak is talking year after year about water. Well, guess what? We have more water than we can handle. So stop talking about water.
Dave Kaplan, 263 Intervale. So I understand this tonight. There's a matter on the agenda where there's a proposed change to the settlement agreement. Is that correct? Yes. Thank you. Okay. That being the case, I'm going to read the following statement. In 2015, after years of negotiations, the township settled with RD Realty to construct the Waterview Marketplace. Attorneys for the township and developer, along with the town council and planning board, agreed to various specifications and assured residents that the deal was not just in their best interest, but was finalized. Years of arguments, frustrations, meetings, and spending more than $50,000 on our own experts and attorneys' fees concluded with an outcome that we didn't necessarily like, but at least we took solace in the fact that all of this had finally come to a close and we could begin to adjust to the significant changes that were pending for our neighborhood. Unfortunately, I have to stand here tonight for the umpteenth time, again asking that you please put the residents before the developers. An agreement was made, and now RD is back and asking for more. And they're not asking because they want to make things better for the neighborhood. They're asking so that they can make more money because they backed themselves into a corner with speculative agreements, and now they need us to help them accommodate a business deal. RD isn't trying to benefit the residents. They're asking you to change the deal so it's better for them. It's time to finally stand up to RD. And while it seems a simple request, from what I understand, they just want to move a wall and swap some square footage, it's way more than that. It's yet another request of you to benefit them. You gave RD a variance for the land use. You gave them a variance for the sign. And you gave them a variance for the height of that ridiculous and hideous wall. So what's in it for us? If RD wants to amend the settlement agreement, why can't we leverage that into an opportunity to lessen the negative impact on the neighborhood and help those who actually live there? So I'll offer you this potential solution. Grant the square footage swap in exchange for eliminating the fast food restaurant that nobody wants. No one on Intervale and Forest wants the odors of a fast food restaurant wafting into their yards and homes every time the winds blow from the south. No one wants to drive along Route 46 in Intervale to see discarded burger wrappers and shake cups. Can I borrow your prop?
You have to ask Mr. Olson.
Get rid of Shake Shack in exchange for moving the walls of Building B. This deal will benefit the neighborhood and allow RD to please their prospective tenants. And if RD isn't interested in such a deal, then I guess that they're just going to have to live with the terms to which they originally agreed. We cannot continue to let developers, and RD specifically, literally bulldoze their way into Parsippany and profit at the expense of those who live here. Those of us forced to deal with the clear-cut aftermath long after Joe Forgione has cashed his check and left.
Say something about RD now or not?
No, yes, you already had your time.
Excuse me.
Mr. Kaplan, I actually, in speaking to many residents from Intervale, and a lot of them have voiced that same opinion, I have contacted the attorney's office and thrown that proposal out to them in reference to that. Again, because a lot of residents in your area have voiced their opinion. You know that I, from the get-go, was against that project. We did the best we could with the settlement, but again, like you said, that now it's just, you know, more, and why should the people over there have to put up with that? So, you know, I totally agree with you.
What did you accomplish when you raised the question?
Well, I just threw it out there. There's nothing, I mean, that there, you know, that would have to be discussed and go back and forth between the attorneys. And,
Well, I would support
and,
that too. I would support that.
so, and I
He
seem
wants
to
us-
be
he
hearing.
wants us to move the
We
wall,
have the
get rid of the
attorney
Shake
here.
Shack.
You know, actually, we
have the
spoke,
attorney here. Can
Yeah,
he come
yeah,
up
the
and
attorney
speak
Yeah.
about that, please?
Yeah.
Sure.
actually, we spoke today about that, about the modification, but not the restaurant.
Good evening. My name is William Opel from the law firm of McManaman, Scotland & Bauman, and we represent the township
So if you could just speak into the mic so they can hear you in the back.
with regard to the Waterview project. Council members, are there any specific questions that you'd like
Yes,
me to
we
answer?
have a
Well,
question about.
I think that,
Or do you want me to give an overview?
I think we have a consensus. I mean, I could take a straw poll vote here if we have a consensus that we can ask you to that's what we'd like, if we're gonna reopen this settlement. then
Let's eliminate the Shake Shack.
A restaurant.
A restaurant.
A restaurant.
So the
That area cannot be a restaurant. In exchange, we'll allow the wall to be moved, that they need to move for whatever they need to do. But that padded area that they're looking to put a restaurant in would have to be something else, not a restaurant.
Understood. I'll contact RD tomorrow.
Are we in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, so just for the record, we have the council here that's essentially, in a way, taken a informal poll, and they agree with the public that in the event that RD Realty would like the request to be granted with regards to increasing the square footage, that they would have to eliminate.
It's not increasing it. It's not increasing it. It's moving one interior wall.
And essentially increasing the square footage of that area, correct?
Of that one area, but making
so
it
that's,
a smaller.
We all know what we mean here. So my point is
I just wanted for the public. I didn't want them to think that they were going to be able to build a bigger structure.
No.
Yeah. No, but for that, you guys would eliminate the Shake Shack. So we're all clear on that, and then they'll get back to the township, and then we'll notify the public.
Well, not just Shake Shack.
Not just Shake Shack. A restaurant.
Any restaurant. I apologize for any restaurant.
And again, just
Council
for the
President,
recollection,
I did not mean anything by that.
No. I just I didn't want the public to
He's the
think
boss,
they were
so-
looking to build a bigger structure and add on more square footage. That's why.
But also, you have to recall that the Shake Shack came in restaurant. It was supposed to be a bank. That was what you guys approved. It was a bank.
Correct.
It was never a restaurant.
Right.
But that's what needs to
Right.
get, and just for the record.
So thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can let us know. Okay, see no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy? Ms. Peters?
Yes, I just want to say that, the water review project, I was opposed to that.
Go ahead.
And, and the $3.5 million or $3.6 million, and I think we're still paying for it with 1.8 in financing. So I think that was unfortunate to begin with. But thank you all for coming tonight.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
And Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Floor is
I'm gonna ask
closed.
the council members to, we have status of adopted ordinances. Ordinance 2018:22 was adopted on
So-
September 25th.
At this time, I apologize, Council President, but I think we would like the chief to come up and discuss B3 under what you're looking at here, the ordinance with regards to the table of organization for the police. So I'm going to ask the chief to come up at this
Can
point.
we, well, you know what, should we get down to the introduction section? We'll just take care of this.
Resolution? Let's introduce the resolution and we'll have the chief come up. Okay, not a problem, Council
Yeah,
President.
no, just the status of the adopted ordinance 2018-22, adopted September 25th, mayoral action September 27th, and effective date October 17th. Okay. Now, Chief.
Chief, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. On October 2nd, I transferred a sergeant from the police department down to the PAL. He was assigned to the PAL. It's a project or a program that I'm very excited about, having law enforcement back into the PAL. I'd like to mention a couple of things on that, but with this assignment of the sergeant.
I don't know if that's on.
Is this on?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Just hold it really
Just not used to the microphone. With the assignment of the sergeant to the PAL, I have 2 open sergeant positions in my staffing at the police department. Currently, the current ordinance for my staffing for sergeants maxes the sergeants at 19. With this transfer, I have 2 openings. I respectfully request tonight consideration of raising the maximum in that ordinance from 19 sergeants to 20. That way I can replace the 2 vacant positions in the police department and then maintain that sergeant down at the PAL. I would like to state, though, that whereas I am requesting an increase of a sergeant, I am not requesting an increase overall in the police department staffing. I have made a commitment, and I submitted a budget last week, an operational budget with 106 officers, for which I'm grateful for. I think that's adequate staffing. So I am not asking for an increase in that staffing, only in the sergeant's position. It does come down to a money issue. I've in conversation and consideration of this request, I realize that it may appear that I'm adding a position in at a sergeant's salary. Actually, it's not. It's the equivalent between an officer and a sergeant in pay grade is $12,000. So this is not, again, the adding of a sergeant's position from pulling an officer off the street or hiring rather a sergeant. And I am conscious of the cost factor involved. I would like to say, as chief since March, I have, in interest of cost savings and effectiveness, which is now a very significant responsibility of mine. I saved this year in some staffing issues in excess of $20,000 in overtime. I've also assembled a committee, an overtime review committee, for which I am on, with the two union presidents, the patrol division commander, where most of the overtime comes from, and also the internal affairs commander, just so that we're on the same page with policy. So again, very conscious to the cost factor, but this is a staffing issue. I think the sergeant down at the PAL will enhance the mission of the PAL, being that there is a law enforcement component. So, and that is the reason for my request with a little bit of background. So thank you very much. If you have any questions for me on that.
Chief, the reason for a sergeant being down there, would that be because if there were other activities where there were other officers from the department down there, you would have a supervisor? Would that be one of the reasons why it's a sergeant down there?
That would be one of several reasons. The reason it has to be a sergeant or a supervisor, but I think a sergeant is more than adequate. The officer assigned to the PAL must have planning and decision-making authority, and also qualified to do training. And only a sergeant has what we call MOI, methods of instruction, and that certifies that officer to train, and with liability protection from that. So it does have to be a sergeant in that position with some autonomy to make those decisions. Also that with the programs that are currently being run at the PAL from the police department, the JOUT program, the Junior Police Academy, the Explorer program. That's run by various officers from my department. This way, that sergeant could take over that task of actual training. Again, it's a supervisory position that's required for that.
I have a question in regard to the sergeant being at the PAL building. How long is he going to be there? Is he going to be in there indefinitely?
He was assigned by personnel order. There's no expiration date on it. As far as I'm concerned, this would be a permanent assignment until I'm told or directed otherwise.
Is he going to take over the director position there?
I'm not familiar with what the long-term mission or goal of the actual PAL is. That's not my decision. The sergeant that's assigned there right now, he was assigned down to the PAL to work with the current director to literally learn how the operation works and how we could integrate more police department activity into the existing structure of the PAL.
Okay. Next question. If the sergeant does not become the director and he is at that position, staying where he is, and we hire a director, so we will have a new director at whatever salary the pay grade is, and then we have a sergeant at his salary being there also. Am I to understand that? If that will happen?
If that's
possibly.
Yes, if that scenario presents, that's exactly what it would be. But again, I'm not adding to my organizational staffing, so there's no additional cost from the police department salary and wage or budget. It's what's current right now. I'm not adding to that.
Okay. I also have your inter-office memo, and it states that you're going to be through attrition. You are going to be you're having a staffing reduction of 2 lieutenants and 1 patrol officer. Property and evidence. Do you know when that will be occurring?
I do not. With attrition, it's only something that I can anticipate. In law enforcement in New Jersey, there's a maximum age of 65. There are no officers that are close to that age. So when an officer decides to retire, I don't know. Typically they don't work past 30 years because that's where the pension maxes out. So through attrition, I don't know, but it's feasible, and it's likely, I think, within the shorter term that there will be some retirements at the higher levels, and through attrition, it's feasible that 2 lieutenant's positions could be eliminated. As far as the civilianization of the property and evidence officer, that could be through attrition, or it could be through transfer. It could really be one or the other. In 2010, the DCA, Division of Consumer Affairs, did a study on the police department. That report recommended, way back in 2010, the civilianization of that position. I think it's still valid. That position with civil service still exists. So that's a decision that I would have to make, whether through attrition or transfer.
Okay.
But that could happen sooner than later.
Your memo also states regarding the property and evidence position, it provides for a civilian position. And you also state that supervision will be from the records sergeant. Is that records sergeant the gentleman that's in the PAL, or do we have another records sergeant that will be training this civilian? If and when you put a civilian in that position.
Yes, the one of the open sergeant's positions is that records sergeant who was transferred to the PAL, Sergeant Griffin. So right now there is no sergeant in records right now.
Okay, so he will be providing instruction to this person, this civilian person?
No, I would not recommend civilianizing that position until there is a sergeant to provide immediate training and supervision. So that's something, again, it's a plan of mine. I want to say long-term, really could be in the shorter time frame.
Okay, do you feel that this will be an outside position to be covered, or do you think you will be promoting from within?
For the records?
Yes.
Well, we're civil service, so we'll be promoting from within, off the current civil service list. There are candidates for a sergeant right now. We have an active list.
Okay, but in order for a patrolman to be promoted to sergeant, if I understand, we have to have a vacancy in the sergeant's position. Do I understand that correctly?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and would Sergeant Griffin's position in the PAL be that open position for sergeant?
Yes.
Okay, so, and then you also want 20, where right now we have on the books 19, but we only have 18 serving of sergeants.
Correct.
Am I correct?
You're correct, yes.
Okay. And you're asking for one more to make a total of 20?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Council President, to Councilwoman Gregnani, I was invited this Thursday night to attend a meeting with the board at the PAL to talk about staffing and the path forward there. So I'll have a report for you after the conclusion of that meeting.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. By ordinance, we have 1 police chief, 1 deputy chief, 3 captains, 8 lieutenants, and 19 sergeants. That's 32 supervisors for something like 75 patrolmen presently, which can go to 81. The reason we set these numbers to begin with was because the police department was becoming top-heavy with supervision. And you're still top-heavy, and now you want to make it more top-heavy by having another sergeant. First of all, the director of the PAL today is a retired police officer. So you had the experience of a retired police officer who's already collecting pension and benefits, collecting what, 65,000, something like that he's making now as the director. And now you want to put in a full-time sergeant making $120,000, $130,000 with pension and benefits, okay? And you're telling me that's a lateral kind of a move? The other thing is Tony Benavita Cullov, who's been there, has been pulling grants in that has kept the PAL alive and well. And that's through his own initiative that he's been doing this. And he's been doing a great job. I really object to having him pushed out. He's